One has should be 3 sheets of paper, right? Well, yeah, three. Three total. That was confusing to get started. So today we're going to talk about investment properties, right? How to buy an investment property in this market. Some of the things that have been working for us in getting our clients big discounts on properties, and some do's and don'ts, some tips and so forth, and then we'll make it into a discussion, right? Um, First and foremost, I'm gonna try to share my screen. Please get the lights. So it all starts with, as an agent, how much value we provide to our clients. Essentially, right? This is um, our value added proposition, right? And I think it all starts with number one, market research and knowledge. We need to know as agents what is going on in our markets, what's going on in our markets, in our backyard, how many properties are for sale, how many properties are pending sale, and so forth. So I'm going to share with you some of those tools that I use. We're going to talk about the process when we sit with our clients and doing our client the initial buyer consultation. We're going to talk about property types, financing options, evaluating properties, what makes it a good investment or not, some legal and tax implications just to keep in mind, and some property management ideas, right? So market research and analysis, it all depends on the type of strategy that our client wants to pursue, essentially. Do I have the wrong window? Yes, I do. Market statistics. I like to use very simple MiamiRealtors.com. We're going under the stats tab, and we're pulling up recent stats, January 25 compared to January 2024. We can look at Broward County. We can look at specific cities and so forth. Know this data. It really, really matters. It gives you essentially a grand picture of what's going on in our local markets. Real estate is very local. So what's going on, nationwide does not particularly reflect what's going on locally. So use this website. Redfin research department tab is also really, really good. You can use the redfin.com research tab. Another thing that you should be very familiar with is what rates are doing. Essentially, every one of our clients is going to ask, what are the rates at today? Better? Okay. So this is, I like going to, this is the Federal Reserve, St. Louis Federal Reserve Data Center. I don't like using third-party websites. This is the source, right? Go here for any data that you can grab from Fred, do it. So this is the 30-year fixed rate mortgage average in the United States. Looking back at, the 1980s was at 17%. Compared to today, it makes it look like it's.
What is that?
I'll share all the links after. Don't worry, I'll share it with you guys. So now if we look back, let's say from 2010 to today, you can see where the mortgage rates are at now. Right? You can see the trend has been going from down here. This is the COVID years, which they were at 2%, 3%. This is where the rates were before the COVID years, which 3, 4% or so forth. So many of our clients ask, when will the rates go back to 2%? Hopefully never, because that means we had COVID 2.0 or 3.0, right? But you can kind of see where the trend has been over the past 15 years. The rates have pretty much hovered around 3 point something to about 5% or so. So now there's a spike up in rates due to inflation and other market factors. But this is where we're at. Now, the next question is, where will the rates? We're in the sixes. You see it here? So it's been going up and down, but it's pretty much maintained in the sixes. It's important to know this essentially because there's a lot of clients that sit on the sideline and they think, well, I'm just gonna time the market to try to get it right. I'm gonna wait till the lowest rate possible comes in. But it's very difficult to time the market perfectly so that you can buy at this rate, right? Let's say at 6% versus 7.7, right? It's very difficult to time the market that way. So when we look at real estate, especially investment real estate, it's important to know a time frame that our clients are looking to invest in. If it's short term, it's very different than if it's medium to long term. If it's medium to long term, meaning that the client is buying and holding these properties to rent, get tax discounts, etc. Essentially, the rates don't really matter, right? The rates don't matter because they don't matter more than entering the market and purchasing your first investment property over trying to time the market to get a 1% discount or 0.5% discount. That doesn't matter as much. Right? So the rates essentially don't matter as much as our clients think they do. Obviously, we'll be able to get them the best possible rates in the market and so forth. But what really matters is getting a good return on investment, finding the right property, the budget, et cetera, which we'll cover today. But it's good that you guys know where the trend for the market rates is at. Another thing to look at to kind of decipher where the rates are going is the U.S. 10-year Treasury. When the Federal Reserve talks about dropping the rates that they're talking about is the short-term variable interest rates. They don't directly affect the mortgage rates. The mortgage rates come from a different index, not the rates that are in the news all the time. It just sounds good when the news talk about lowering the rates or raising the rates, etc. So this is a good point of reference, the U.S. 10-year Treasury. So we can kind of gauge what the trend is over the past year. And you can kind of see it matches. We put it side by side with a 5-year. No, not that one. We do the 5-year comparison. They kind of match up. You see that? It's not a one-to-one, it's not exact. It's a good estimate. Any questions there?
Yeah, the 10-year yield is the closest indicator of what interest rates are going.
Yep. What interest rates are doing, for sure.
Yeah.
So know your market, number one, first and foremost. Know your market so that you're able to answer our client questions, our client concern, and add value to that transaction. Very local data trumps anything that's nationwide and so forth. So know your local data over everything. Right. So now we have a client that wants to meet and they want to explore the possibility of purchasing their first investment property. So what's the first step, right? So we do a client consultation, a buyer consultation, or an investor consultation. At that point, this is where we sit down with our clients. We analyze what type of investment they want to do. This is really important. What's the time frame? Excuse me. Whether they want to do a short-term strategy, which means a flip, right? Buy, fix up the property, flip. That's something shorter than a 12-month horizon. They want to buy and hold the property, or if they want to just move into the property and rent their current property, right? We have to really narrow down what type of investment, what type of strategy they want to use, because from there, we can kind of determine what our next step will be. first and foremost, we have to sit with a client and pre-qualify them, fully pre-qualify them. So something that has been working for us and for our team and helping our realtors and buyers negotiate offers is we're making cash offers for them, right? So traditionally, you go to a mortgage broker or a bank, they pre-qualify you, they submit a pre-qualification letter, and off it goes. Now you're submitting your offer with a pre-qualification letter. We do things a little bit different. We pre-underwrite the file, we get the file underwriting ready, and we submit it for underwriting review. So now the underwriter reviews the file and they give us an actual pre-approval. So we have conditions on the file ready to go. So now when our agent goes to make an offer, they can waive the financing contingency. They can add the appraisal contingency that adds a lot of leverage to your offers. We're seeing a lot of good results with that strategy. You're essentially making a cash offer, right? It's not contingent on financing. It's just pretty much cash. It's already approved. There's nothing additional that we need to do. Any questions there? Okay.
So anybody knows what the interest rate is on renting? 100%. Why? 0% of that rent you're paying comes back to you in the form of equity. It is a powerful argument that you have with clients who are on the fence about interest rates.
Can you explain that bit?
So you're paying $3,000 a month rent. How much of that comes back to you in the form of equity? Zero. Therefore, you're paying 100% interest on the rent. You get it? Because you don't, none of that comes back to you in the form of equity. You're building equity for your landlord, right? So if you buy now, even if you buy at 8%, you start building equity for yourself.
Right. The sooner you enter into the market as for an investment property or your primary, you start paying your equity down.
Exactly. You build long-term, the moment you purchase, whether interest rates are low or high, your rubber hits the road.
Yep.
In long-term wealth building. All that time you've been renting, you've been doing that for your landlord. Tell that to your clients. And then tell them, you can buy at 8% now, 7, 6, whatever it is, I'll be the first one to call you when rates go down. Mario will call your client the moment there is a tangible benefit for them to finance. In the meantime, they're building wealth for themselves instead of building wealth for somebody else.
Yep.
Very simple.
The longer you postpone or the client postpones purchasing and continues to rent, the longer that payoff, like that retirement point comes in, the 30-year mortgage, etc. Any questions? Everybody got that?
Oh, and the Fed cut rates. So when the Fed cut rates, the last few times the Fed has cut rates, it's been a huge news. Everybody's talking about it. And rates have gone up. Mortgage rates have gone up. Because like Mario said, they have nothing to do with 30-year fixed mortgage. Nothing to do. But you can still win that conversation. When they call you and say, hey, the cut rates, what are rates today? You tell them, hey, rates went up. Because the Fed doesn't really have anything to do with 30-year mortgage rates. So why don't you do it now before they're going higher? And if it happens that when the Fed cuts rates happen to go down, it happens sometimes, even though they're not connected, you can still win that conversation. Hey, buy now that rates went down before they go up again. You can always win the conversation.
Yep.
There's always an argument to defeat the buyer. Okay.
Exactly. And when we look, when I showed you guys the tab for market data, Miami Realtors tab, it's you can essentially make a case for or against purchasing a property and so forth. That's a phenomenal. I mean, how do you argue against that, right? You're essentially paying 100% interest if you continue to rent, you postpone your retirement, postpone your payoff, mortgage payoff date, and so forth. In this market now, we're seeing slowdown in pending sales. And what that tells us is that we can actually go in and negotiate with more leverage for these properties that have been listed for months, right? We're getting really good results, targeting properties that have been listed longer than 30 days. We come in with no financing contingency, essentially cash offers. We're able to get our clients big discounts on these properties, right? The key is, right, the clients trust you guys. So the key is for you guys to help us get all of the documents we need from our clients to make sure that the file is underwriting ready, so that we can pre-approve the client, give them an actual approval from underwriting, so you guys can make your offers much more stronger than, hey, here's a pre-qual letter for, from so-and-so bank, right? So we can do that. We can do that. While we're sitting with the clients and we're determining essentially what type of strategy they want to do, short-term, long-term, buy and hold, et cetera, from there we start asking the questions about what type of property they want to buy, and the order in which the clients buy the properties really matters, where it could really help build their portfolio. Here's why. If a client wants to invest and they sit down with us and they tell us, I want to buy a property, once every 2 years, once every 3 years, and they don't have 20% saved up, they can essentially buy each property, a primary residence, minimum down payment, 5% each time. The key is doing it in the right order, right? Underwriting, Fannie Mae allows us to consider a purchase as primary purchase as long as the new property is an improvement from the property that you currently have. It doesn't mean more expensive. It just means an improvement. It's superior on paper, right? So for example, if a client comes in and they say, I want to start investing, I have 20% to buy a condo, but I also want to buy a house. I'll be ready to buy a house in 3 years. And if you buy it in, for example, the condo first, you can do either 5% down primary residence for your condo. When you're ready to buy the house, you can now make that house your primary purchase, 5% down again. So you can buy the condo 5% down, buy a single family residence 5% down. Now let's say they want to buy another property as an investment, but they don't have the 20% down. As long as the next property is superior to the one that they currently live in, they can do primary residence 5% down. They don't have to save the 20%.
But it means more expensive.
So the price does not make it superior. Superior meaning one or more bedrooms, more square footage, bigger lot, closer to like the beach, for example, closer to your job.
So we have to explain that to the.
Yeah, we do. All right, and this is part of the pre-qualification process. When we're sitting with a client and let's say they're living in Coral Gables, $1 million properties, but now they get their job transferred them to Boca, and they want to buy a single family residence and it costs $500,000. That's an improvement. That's a superior property because you're now moving closer to your job, you transfer you, etc. Maybe more bedrooms, bigger square footage. So the price doesn't really make it superior. It's the actual home specs.
You have to live in the.
You're buying it as primary, so yes, moving into the property. That's correct. Right? You're renting the other house. Right? So this is for someone that wants to invest and build a portfolio without having to save 20-25% down payment for each purchase. The order in which they do it really matters. So the timing, it depends, right? It depends. For example, if you buy a house, like I said, in Coral Gables, but your job transfers you, in 2 months up to Jacksonville, you can buy primary up there, 5% down. Right? That's an exception to, technically you're supposed to, 12 months, it's more or less the waiting period, but there are exceptions.
How long do you have to live in the primary?
Depends. How long do you have to live in the primary? Like, depends on different factors. Like for example, if your job transfers you, you can buy primary again, right? There's no, technically it's 12 months, but if there are exceptions. Job transfer, etc. Right?
Or if you accept a job with a different
it depends, as long as it makes sense.
So, if they buy a condominium as a primary, and they as a first buyer,
Yep.
and they later they buy a house, also can be that as a first buyer.
As a primary residence.
Primary,
No.
not first buyer.
As a primary residence, you essentially, our clients, they're gonna get the best possible rates anyway. So as long as we can do it as primary residence, you're fine, you can do 5% down. So you can buy the condo as your primary, 5% down. And then you can buy the house or a townhouse, 5% down, right? So a client, yep, as long as finding the house, as long as it's a superior property to the one that you're buying, and it's your primary residence, then you can. Okay. There are a few exceptions there, just something to keep in mind, right? If you have a couple that's ready or a client that's ready to retire and they want to downsize, then we don't require that the property is superior, right? They're close to retirement age, or maybe they're retired, they want to go from a 4-bedroom house down to a condo, that's allowed, right? If someone is not in retirement age and, they just want to, it's going to be a more difficult sale to the underwriter that, hey, they're leaving this beautiful 3-bedroom Coral Gables and they want to buy it, right? It's different. Yeah, right. So if you're having a conversation with your clients, and we have these conversations during our initial buyer consultation, if they want to buy a property in 2 or 3 years and they think they have to save that 20% to buy, their first single-family residence, they don't have to. They can buy a condo now, stop paying rent, like Raul said, stop paying somebody else's mortgage down, pay yourself down, 5% down condo. In 2 or 3 years, once you've saved up 5%, 10%, whatever, you can buy that primary residence again, 5% down minimum down payment.
I think you said that, like if you're downsizing as a senior, let's say, you can get a smaller place.
Yes,
And use it as primary.
correct. Exactly. We do a lot of that for snowbirds. A lot of clients that move from up north. We do that all the time.
I have a client that is purchasing a house. Their price has to be a price. The house has to be a price as a buying and as a rental. So the law is according to the rental. Do you offer that also?
Is it a duplex, like a multifamily?
No. It's a house, but it's that's like a loan. It's a price.
Yes, you are.
The price is anything comparable.
As you're buying it,
Plus the rental. So if the property is not allowed to rent it right away, they don't qualify. So but he's already.
so that's an investment purchase. Right
It
there.
is.
Yeah.
But I want to know in this who offer that.
Yeah, 100%, of course. Yeah. So we've been talking about purchasing a property as a primary residence with minimum down. If we sit with our clients and they say I have the 20%, 25, 30%, whatever it is, and they're ready to buy an investment property, we have different options for that, different down payment options and so forth. And those types of loans are underwritten a little bit differently, right? We take the rental income to qualify the mortgage.
Yes,
Essentially, so yes, you're
because for their price they need the form 1007.
1007 is the rent schedule.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so we can do that too, of course. Right. So now, and then for that, we have different options, essentially. We can do a conventional mortgage, 20, 25% down, investment purchase, right? Because it's an investment purchase, you now need 20, 25%. This is why the order matters if the client doesn't want to save all the 20, 30%. Right? So if a client wants to invest in real estate, but they don't have the money now, they can buy a condo, for example, or a townhouse, save another 5%, buy a single family residence, and then just repeat the process over and over again without having to save the 20, 25, 30%. Now, if the client sits with us and they tell us, yes, I have a 20, 30% down, whatever it is, for an investment purchase, then we do an investment loan for the client. And for that, we have different options for the type of investments. Don, you want to tell us about it?
About financing options.
Sure.
So we got essentially for first-time home buyers, whether they're going to be qualified for FHA or conventional, obviously we'll have that conversation with them. In the terms that they do qualify for FHA, and they are first-time home buyers, we can essentially qualify them for a 3.5% down payment. First-time home buyer, that's a duplex, 3.5% down, and like Mario was with that appraisal from 1007, for your example. If their income may not be as great for the file, we can go ahead and take the projected rental income based off comparables from the appraiser and utilize that to strengthen their loan application to ensure that they qualify. So that's a huge plus. Fannie Mae, I want to say about 6 months or so ago, we did do a training, we did discuss this, but just as a refresher, before If you wanted to invest in a multifamily first-time home buyer conventional, you probably have to do like 15% down. Now, if they did away with that, you're able to qualify with just 5% down. So say we have a first-time home buyer, they're in the market for a duplex or a triplex, whatever it may be, they want to start their investment portfolio as soon as possible. We can go ahead and get them in. They don't have 50% down, we can get them in with 5% down. Same thing as FHA, we'll utilize an appraisal based off the comparable rents in that area and on those additional units that will be rented out. So the borrower will reside in one unit, let's say it's a triplex for this example. The other 2 units will be able to take that income, projected rental income, and utilize that on their application. So that way they can qualify with just 5% down.
So that's something that changed recently. It's important. Make sure you guys got that. It used to be that in order for you to buy a duplex, triplex, quadplex with conventional mortgages, you could not do 5% down. You had to do at least 15%. Okay, so that took a lot of buyers that wanted to essentially buy a property and also be an investor. Took a lot of clients out of the market. But that changed recently. So we can now do just 5% down for multifamily.
Foreign clients?
Sorry? Foreign clients? No, foreign nationals, always 25, 30%. Foreign nationals. Yeah, always 25, 30%. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
In this case, the buyer has to be on the.
Correct. Yeah, and think about minimum down payment, right? 5% down requires a primary residence. Your client has to live on the property. Okay. So keep that in mind. So, and this is a good conversation to have with your clients because many lenders are still requiring 15, 20, 25% to buy duplexes. Not us. We can do it with 5% down as long as they're buying it as a primary residence. So they can move into one of the units and rent the other side.
How long do you have to stay in the unit?
Technically 12 months, but there's exceptions. Right? So, I mean, look, if the client tells you flat out, I want to buy it as primary, but I don't want to live in it, you should not be doing that loan. Right? There's solutions and things that we can offer them to make sure everything's within guidelines and so forth, so they can buy the property and not have to worry about whether they live there 12 months or not and so forth. Okay?
And what happens if he moves out after 3 months?
If he moves out, he just wants to move out.
Yeah, he buys it and says he's gonna live in there. But after 3 months, he moves out.
Part of that's it's a gray area. So for me as the mortgage broker, at the time of closing, the intent of the client has to be a primary residence. What they do after, I cannot control.
But after someone he's decided that he wants to move out to some other place.
They want to move out, yeah. Look, at the point of at closing, their intent was to live in that property, primary residence. That's what it is. Could be. Yeah.
The lender, if they find out, if the lender finds out, they might call him and say, hey, no.
Yeah, they may accelerate the mortgage. That's one thing that could happen. So if you buy the property as primary residence, and then you never move in or you move out and so forth, the lender finds out they did this loan as a primary residence, and it is not a primary residence anymore, they can accelerate the loan. So they can come to you and say, you have to pay me the mortgage. Yeah, that's why I say, if the client tells you,
for 30 years,
I'm sorry?
that doesn't make any sense.
No, that's why I said there's exceptions. Technically, it's 12 months, but if something happens that's out of your control and you have to move, what are we gonna do? The important thing is that at closing, their intent is primary residence. If something happens that they have to move, you have to move. What are you know? Got that? Any questions? So that's a really important change that happened within a year or so ago, maybe a year and a half. Multifamily, minimum down payment, conventional, 5% down. So keep that in mind. It used to be that if someone wanted to enter conventional, into a multifamily, with minimum down, they had to do FHA, 3.5% down. But the problem was if they already own the property, they can't now buy an FHA property without having to consider the departing residence, rental income, a bunch of technical stuff that went into it. It usually didn't work. So now we just have to worry about the departing, wherever they're leaving from, We're renting that property, they're buying a duplex, triplex, etc. 5% down is primary, and so on. Okay. The important takeaways is multifamily. If your client wants to do it, yes, 5% down. Okay. If they own a property, they can buy the next one, 5% down, as long as we can rent the one that they're leaving from. Right? So keep that in mind. The down payment and the type of loan or the type of property affects the down payment and the type of loan, right? So we have FHA, conventional VAs, phenomenal rates for VAs, keep that in mind. Then we also have something called non-QM loans, DSCR loans or national loans, and so forth. Essentially, everything that's not a conventional or FHA mortgage. Dom, you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, essentially, the DSCR, I think that's a great play for foreign national buyers that are looking to.
DSCR is debt service loans, right? That's the one that you mentioned, that you have the rental income offset the mortgage payment. That's it. Good credit, that's all we need. As long as the rental offsets the mortgage, you're good to go.
That is a lot of money, that's about things.
Yeah, 25-30% down is the minimum.
Correct. We also have the business bank statement loans. We talked about that plenty of times in the past. We've done a few for the realtors here, and we've had great experiences with them. Essentially, we'll take 12 months worth of bank statements from the borrower's business. They're self-employed. We can also do personal statements if they're Schedule C. We can delve into the details with them. But what we can do is we'll send them to our lender. They'll calculate the income based off the deposits, the income that gets filtered into the business. They go ahead and they put that over a certain expense ratio. We can go down to 10% expense ratio. We can prove it with a CPA letter.
Take away from there, very simple. If you have a client that's self-employed and they write off everything with a sun, so you know they make a lot of money, but then when they file the taxes, they're like at zero and something's off. You know they make a lot of money. This program that Dom is talking about refers to that bank statement loans. We just take the 12 most recent bank statements, we take their deposits, and that's how we qualify their income. It's a little more technical than that, but that's essentially the basics of it. We take the last 12 months of the business bank statements, we take their deposits as their qualifying income. Okay? So you don't have to worry about their taxes, their write-offs. We don't even look at their taxes.
Oh, so you don't need
We don't need taxes.
only make this thing.
Only bank statements. Right? Good credit bank statements.
Yeah.
Okay? Now you can also buy with that program as primary residence. So primary residence, 10% down for bank statement programs. Okay? You want to buy an investment, then it's 20-25%, right?
Correct. 25%. That's the standard. We can also do, like Mario stated, there's foreign national loans that we can also look into in case you guys have foreign investors. We can always pair them up with some good programs as well. But the non-QM side just gives us solutions. So like Mario said, with those clients that are rough around the tax returns, they're deducting a lot, they wouldn't qualify for standard conventional. We can bring them the non-QM route, and we can go ahead and get them with all those solutions there.
So if your client tells you, I don't file much in my taxes, doesn't matter. You can probably do it anyways. Yeah. Any questions? Comments? Okay. So
Sorry, what incentive para for person buyer for a loan?
Yeah.
Like some banks, they offer like a $7,000, $10,000, whatever.
sure, you have to be careful with the incentive, that fine print. A lot of times what these brokers and lenders or banks do is they'll just give you a higher interest rate and they'll credit you that money back. Right? We take a different approach. Essentially, our clients, they choose their interest rate. So we give them the options and they can choose their interest rates. Certain interest rates, the higher, the more credit back they get towards their closing costs. Right? I like to be upfront and just kind of tell them how it works, and then it's up to them to decide whatever works best. I find that a little bit better than telling them, hey, we'll give you, X amount of money back. But in reality, they're just giving them a higher interest rate, right? So you have to be careful with that. But yes, you have those options. You could also, finance some of the costs. You could also get a seller to finance some of the costs and so forth. The key, it all starts with a strong pre-approval. If we have the file ready for underwriting, we have an approval, we can now go negotiate all of these terms in our favor.
With that being said, what docs are needed for pre-approval?
Glad you asked. Read my mind. Conventional FHA, right? We ask for 2 years tax returns, 4 pay stubs. That's it. There's lenders and brokers that will ask you for a whole list of things. Sure, we may need that for underwriting centrally, but I just want to get the process started to make sure the client qualifies. Once the client qualifies, I know exactly what it is that underwriting is going to ask for, and now we give them a list of items that we need for underwriting. That's where we need your help to come in and help us gather all of these documents from the clients. Help us in the sense that put a little bit of urgency in the process.
You said 2 year tax return, what else?
For most recent pay stubs. If the client is self-employed and there are no pay stubs, then just 2 years tax returns. Okay? Yep.
Yeah, for the investors, I know there is some incentives coming from the cities, not for you,
Uh-huh.
not from the lender, I mean. So in these cases, can we work together with the investors? I mean, with a list of the city, we can search, you know?
So the incentives from the city for investment.
Yes.
The majority of city, county, and state incentives are for primary residence purchase. Right? And yeah, we're approved to essentially accept all of those grants. It just has to be from government agency, etc. But yes, we're approved for that. For investors specifically, they want to buy an investment property rather than primary and rent their current. There's opportunity zones that you can find on the public websites for Broward and Miami-Dade. The opportunity zones gives you a bunch of tax discounts for development and so forth. I can point you guys to that. It gets a little bit technical, but there are incentives for investors also. But the city grants and county grants are typically for primary residences and or first-time home buyers. You have to be careful with that. Same thing, I've seen some of these banks offer first-time home buyer grants or etc. incentives. Read the fine print. It usually comes in the form of a second mortgage. Okay, just read the fine print.
We are accredited by, how many of you have heard of the Broward County Housing Finance Division? So through Certified Home Loan, through Mario, we are accredited to use the down payment assistance programs that the county offers, depending on which city. I closed one last month where the young gentleman received $80,000 in down payment assistance from the city of Oakland Park. Can you clear up on the speaker side?
What's the link?
Just Google Broward DPA, Broward Down Payment Assistance, Broward DPA. I'm going to show you something that's going to give you a lot of power to bring in buyers and to get loans done here.
Yep.
Broward DPA, just Google it. Broward DPA is the issues. Not the whole.
Broward D.
Broward DPA.
Just like that.
Alright, the first thing that comes up on the Google search is dollars. Okay, there it is. Everything you need to know on the program is there. It's on the record. Now, if you click on the home body or program flyer, it's going to download the PDF and put it up. Oh, there it is. Perfect. These are the seats. Coconut Creek gets you 50,000. They and maybe Oakland Park, which will go down there. See 80,000 from Oakland Park. The guidelines are down here. Okay. We are certified to offer that program. This is a very powerful tool. Go back to market.
Where? Down?
Yeah, just go back to the prior page.
This?
Yeah, now click on participating lenders, right there. Now go to page 2. See that? Certified home loans? Right there.
Man.
That's us. Okay? So, not everyone will qualify. But if you put this out there, you're going to get a lot of calls. Right? Because it has guidelines, it has income limits, it has a bunch of stuff. Right? You leave that to us. Every time we pre-qualify someone, we see if they qualify. This is a great tool. And we have it to certify home loans through Mario Rodriguez here in the Western office. Okay? So use it. And if you have any questions about that, always ask. We'll be happy to answer any questions. But that is a great tool for you.
Yep.
You have in your tool belt, bringing buyers to certify home loans. We're there.
Great. Questions on that? So Hollywood is here, up to 50,000. Pembroke Pines.
Yeah, you can download the PDF and send it to us.
Yeah, no, of course, I'll make it available to you guys. You guys can have this.
Are these amount that's is paid back later, or this is an?
Most of them are in the form of a 15-year silent second mortgage, zero interest, zero payment for 15 years. At the end of the 15 year, they will leave the loan. As long as during those 15 years, that has been your primary residence.
Okay.
Now,
Oh, 15 years, so what has to be
15 years.
primary?
Now, if you sell it on year 7, you might need to pay half of it back. Right? So if you sell it on year 10, you might need to pay 2/3, 1/3 of it back. Right? But it's a silent second.
Yep.
Silent second.
This is a great tool for you guys to initiate conversations with your clients. Most agents don't know this. And a lot of clients that could qualify don't even know that this program is available. So,
Actually, it's like
sorry?
if,
Yeah, of course.
oh, actually, then if someone who's interested in a certain area, then they don't really bring down payment because this is
Right.
good. It's good down
You have
payment.
the potential, you gotta bring, you can't buy it with zero down. The best case scenario, the program requires you to bring in some of your own money.
Yeah.
But the best, they require 3% out of your own funds, right? Those are 3%, 2% can be set up in the future. So you got those deals with 1% of property. Right?
Wow, that's good.
Yeah.
Very, very,
Very good.
yeah. Yeah, now there are guidelines. And a lot of people won't qualify, but it's a great tool to start a conversation and bring in pre-approval.
Exactly.
Big time.
Any other questions? Thank you, Ro. Phenomenal tool.
And the cities get funded, sometimes they run out of funds, but you can always see if cities have funds by going to this public website. This is not private, this is not exclusive to it. You can Google it, it's right there, public access. And you can download the flyer and see which cities have funds at this time. Very, very easy.
This is the same for Miami.
Miami has a different program, this is only in Broward. The Miami program is called MD.
Yep. And make sure that whenever, you gotta be careful with Google. Whenever you guys put it up, it has to be the county or city website. Don't go off of, another like lenders or brokers website. Make sure it's a city website. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so far, Google hasn't returned any other top result.
You see this one here?
When you type Broward EPA, the first result that comes up on Google is the program.
Yep.
Broward.org. Yeah.
So
What is the name of Miami?
It's called MDEAT, Miami-Dade EAT. But this is only Broward.
okay. Quick recap. I'll show you guys another tool that we use also for here, and I think we'll wrap it up. Quick recap. The order in which the client buys the properties matters, so that your client doesn't always have to come up with 20% down to buy the next property or an investment property. If they do it in the right order, they can always do it with 5% down, as long as we can make it a primary residence. Okay? We have foreign national loans, 25, 30% down. It's very easy for underwriting. If you guys have a foreign national client, the answer is yes, we can do the financing. Okay? If we have clients that are self-employed, they don't file taxes or they file too many deductions on the taxes, we have a solution for that too, which is a bank statement program, 10% down. Okay? And we can take their deposits to qualify them instead of their tax returns. We currently have discounts on FHA and VA rates. No one can beat us right now. So if you guys have anyone that's pre-qualified at another lender, bring them over. I'm very confident we can beat them and get them a better rate. Quick recap there, okay? Now, for when we're sitting with our clients and buying investment properties, if we're able to get a pre-approval done, we can create more leverage in our offers because we can either waive the financing contingency or make it a cash offer because we have the client approved already. It makes us much stronger. Okay. If you submit an offer for a client that I have already pre-approved, or Dominic or Raul or any of us, we can essentially help you close that sale. We can come as close to guaranteeing the financing as we can because we have an approval ready. It goes a long way to have your mortgage broker make a call to the listing agent and tell them we have the file in underwriting already. It eliminates the doubt of what could be in underwriting. Okay. If somebody wants to do, the second handout that I gave you, there's some formulas there and some things that I look at whenever we're essentially evaluating what a good investment is. I included cap rate. I included return on investment. The most important one, in my opinion, when we're looking at properties over time, was it this one? The most important one to keep an eye on is the internal rate of return. Now, this is the formula. I am not going to explain this formula. It's way too complicated. I'll show the websites that I use for this. Okay. And these websites essentially calculate all of this stuff for us. The internal rate of return, they give us the cap rate, cash on cash return, and so forth. This website gives us the outlook on what the property is year one versus the expected hold time for the property. And they gave us a rate of return annually throughout those years. It's a very easy website to use. You just plug in the numbers that you already know, you hit calculate, and off it goes. This is for anyone that wants to buy and hold the property and they're debating whether it makes sense for you to do so or not. This doesn't take into account all of the tax deductions that you're able to now take because you own real estate. That's a better question for a CPA, but it's important that you guys know that your client will have or will be able to take some advantages there on tax deductions because they own real estate. I'll show this website as well. For short-term rentals, it's important to do a lot of market research and know and kind of like pick out your top 3 or 4 short-term rental markets. I use AirDNA, airdna.co. AirDNA essentially takes data from VRBO, Airbnb, homes.com, and they use AI to kind of create an algorithm to give us an outlook on what certain markets look like for short-term rentals. So while sitting with your clients in our buyer consultation, investor consultations, we're looking at this map, essentially picking out areas that your client wants to invest in and just kind of weighing the options as to what areas are good, better than others, etc., for short-term rentals. Not every area is good, obviously. If this decides to load, then I'll be able to show you what I look at. Let's see. Give it a minute, let's see. Okay.
There's a business on the rental, the kind of rentals coming in the city. Is that something that we find in Airbnb website?
Yeah, you can see the trends there. But remember, it's very local. So for example, you can look at rental of gross rental income in, I don't know, Silver Shores, and then go 3 blocks over and it's completely different, right? So whenever you're looking at long-term rentals, make sure that you're looking very hyper-local at that market. Condos also, there are some buildings that rent much faster and easier than other buildings, even though they may be right next to each other, right? So for long-term rentals, and there should be a lot of data available to you on the MLS. That's usually where I go. Right? Whenever we're looking at properties, whether it makes sense to invest or not, I start there, the MLS. So now, while we're sitting with a client, we know what the expected mortgage payment is. We get a good estimate, including taxes, insurance, etc. And from there, we can kind of determine what market will cover that mortgage payment. Where can we place the client so that the rental income offsets at the very least the mortgage payment? Right? So we kind of take it in steps. Client decides to invest, we pre-qualify them, determine a budget, and then from there we start narrowing down the markets that we take them to. Okay. So let's see if it loaded. Well, I guess you guys are gonna have to take my word for it. It's a really good website, a lot of good data. I don't know why it's not loading. But anyways, use this also to do your market research, understand the market, know what is a good market for short-term rental, know what isn't. This website gives you a lot of data on, for example, if you buy a house, how close to the beach do you need to be? Is a pool required? What's the favorite amenity? Is it a hot tub? Is it mini golf? What is it? Like, this gives you all of that information to be able to provide and help your client find the right property.
Does it tell you if you're gonna do short-term rentals on the property?
It doesn't tell you that specifically. You'd always want to check the city website, the county website to make sure that you can. A good indicator to look out for is that if there's a lot of short-term rentals in an area, you're probably fine.
That changes all the time.
It changes 100%. You have to make sure you check the city and the county website every time. It doesn't matter. Even if you checked it today, you looked with your client for a month and you found the property, check it again. You never know. Things can change. The HOA, the HOA changes way too often. My rule of thumb essentially is if you're doing short-term rental or if your client wants to do short-term rental, stay out of HOAs. You know, one day it could be fine, the next day it could not. Now you're in trouble.
All big hotels.
Big hotels. So if you go to an area that has a high hotel concentration, it's probably not good for Airbnbs because those hotels are lobbying against Airbnbs in the area. Well, I wish this would work. Oh, here we go. This one worked. So this is what it would look like if you look at a specific area for short-term rentals. It kind of points out all of the active short-term rentals in the area. It gives you property-specific statistics. So, for example, this property has a 32% occupancy. The average nightly rate, $734, and the revenue is $42,000 a year. That one's new. This is a studio. So this studio is averaging $159 per night, and for the year is about $15,000. If your client has, you know, they find a 4-3 bedroom house and they're able to rent the studio, like the master bedroom, make it into a short-term Airbnb, and he checks all the boxes in the city, should be able to do that. They can bring in $15,000 through Airbnb short-term rental income, and they're renting out a studio, right? When you look at different markets, it'll give you all these types of statistics. Again, it's more information that you're able to provide to your clients, value added, why they choose you over another agent, right? Knowledge usually sets us apart, the process and so forth. So you have all of this data that you're able to help your clients with to find the right short-term rentals.
Knowledge drives comfort.
100%. Largest property managers in the area. So if your client wants to be hands-off, they want to hand the property off to the property manager, they tell you who the biggest property managers are in the area. Give you their rating, it's all here. So use this website. The Fred, the San Luis Federal Reserve, they even have an app. Whenever your client has a question about where the rates are going, CPI, et cetera, I had a conversation this morning with a client that came in who was considering investing some of the funds that he has in a certificate of deposit. He was kind of determining whether he should put it back into a CD, paying him like 3 point something %, or put it into an investment property. Now, my approach is not to try to convince the client to do real estate. I just want to show him the options, show him the data, and kind of help him through making a decision whether it's renewing his certificate of deposit or buying a property. It's up to him. I don't like to convince. I like to just kind of present the information in a manner which is easy to understand. He had a concern about the market crashing, and I showed him, look, if you look at the data of the median home prices in Broward County over the last 30 years, on average, has been going up. Even if we account for the crash between 2008, 2007 to 2009, all these clients had to do was hold out for 6 years or so, and they would have recuperated all of their equity. Look at that. That's all they had to do. Just hold. Now, in today's market, there's a lot more fail-safe processes and laws and procedures in place to prevent a market crash like that. And we saw that during COVID. COVID happened, and a lot of these banks went into that forbearance process immediately with their client. Much easier. That wasn't in place back in 2006, 2007, where the client just stopped paying or they couldn't pay. The foreclosure process will begin. So there's more processes, more fail-safe processes in place now to prevent a crash like that from happening. So I kind of just showed him this, and it made sense to him that his concern, and his outlook was to buy a property and hold it 5+ years. So it made sense. It made sense to him to build equity over time as he's paying his equity down. The value of the property is going up, so it's 2x or 3x what it would be on a certificate of deposit. As the rates come down, the CD rates will come down, so you won't make as much. Right? So, and I used the Fred. I didn't use, any other website. This is like the source. Like, we go here. Any questions? I think we pretty much covered everything, unless you guys have a specific question on anything, processes, and so forth.
Is there any loan finance flipping property?
Yes. So if your client wants to flip a property, we have hard money loans or short-term mortgages. Right? This market, if somebody's looking to flip a property, they have, my opinion, they should be very, what's the word? They should have done this multiple times before, because this isn't an easy market to flip properties in. There's not a lot of margins in the market. There's not a lot of margins in the market, so you have to be careful. Okay, but yes, we have flip loans and
Properties that has liens that need to be closed.
That's a title issue. That's different. Okay, open permit is not a title issue. You can close with an open permit depending on the permit, but you can close with an open permit. You can't close with a lien on the property. Okay.
But title allows us to close with that liens because the HOA gives us a verbal release.
You can, if it's in an HOA and they give you a partial release, then yes, but it depends. Okay, it depends on the type of lien. It depends. But yeah, if you get a partial release, you should be able to close. Okay. Questions? All right, we're done. Raul, thank you, man. I appreciate it. Really good input.
Turn the lights on, guys.
And I can, let's see. So we have a few links. How do I do this? I have. You're right. I'll just email everybody. Thank you, guys. Yes. Come on. Yeah. So if we have, we send everything as underwriting, pre-underwriting file, it would be like no longer fast. You can do it even faster, depending on target. But it really helps with the whole process. Oh, yeah.